Good Wednesday evening to you folks. How are you? It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. I, of course, am the one and the only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you from a largely undisclosed location in a bunker hidden in the swamps of Florida. I'm glad you're able to join us tonight. So, we got a show for you. We've got I think, a pretty good show for you. And our guest tonight is very awesome. Of course, if you've been reading ahead, you know who that's going to be. But I just want to say it is. So the situation with Wednesday night live stream, we've got a hex crawl live stream going on, and Kyle is currently looking for a couple more players for that. So we're waiting on that to gel. But sans that, I said, what can I do? What can I do? So I thought, who deserves some screen time, who absolutely deserves a good stern talking to, mister, is tonight's guest. Now, to call him an unsung hero of the great underground online gaming conventions, numbers 1, 2, and 3, would be an understatement, because he's been so much more, not just on a channel level, but on a personal level. I think this guy is swell. He is a longtime gamer and really one of the earliest members here of the channel. And I'm damn glad that we've got a little bit where we can sit back and we can talk to him about his gaming endeavors, about his praxis when it comes to his convention going, any plans he might have going on in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please let us welcome from the medium security wing of the Volusia County Jail. I'm just kidding, of course. You know him as DOOMSWORD DEATHMASTER. I know him as Mr. Bill Catawaller. Everybody welcome DOOMSWORD. How are you, sir?
Hey, what's up?
Not much, my friend, not much. So as you guys know, of course, you tune in on Tuesday nights. I hope you tune in every night, honestly. And if you don't, who are you and how dare you? But Dooms, you're on the Tuesday AD&D game. You're on the Friday Gamma World game, both of which are a lot of fun. And you have popped in from time to time on other gaming streams. So welcome finally to the guest seat, where you can work a little bit less than you have to at the cons. Thank you, Lord Corion, for the super. I really appreciate that. So for those who only know you as the bloodthirsty swordsman Vrug Dorn, or as the man with two names over on the Gamma World channel, probably saying, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what parts? So,
Well,
I'm from Florida.
You're from Florida. That's right. I've got to ask you the boilerplate question
Sure.
is your gaming bio, like where did that all start? When and where did you get into the gaming scene? What brought you here? Who are you? Good.
Yeah, right. And I think that's a good question. So, I was born in 1974, and I'm not gonna take you from my birth to my current state or whatever. But it's interesting to mention that, because that's the year that D&D came out, and I feel an attachment to that now, and I felt an attachment to that ever since I discovered that. Right, but it was first in. So I grew up in a poor neighborhood, and back in the 80s, we had this thing called the gifted program, right? And if you, if you were a certain type of student or whatever, you would get bussed off on Wednesdays to another school. Okay, so Wednesday was like your special day. The bus would come pick you up and they would take you off to this other school. They would actually teach you meaningful stuff.
Mhm.
And I went to this other school, and the gift, because there was just a single teacher, the gifted teacher, I can't remember her name, but at the end of gifted session, she would she would roll out D&D. You know, I assume at the time it was Holmes because this was in 1981. I don't remember a whole lot of that, but I got pulled out of that school. You know, it was back in the satanic panic, right? So I got pulled
Right,
out of that
right.
school because I instantly came home and told my mom, hey, there's this awesome game that I just learned. And also, did you know that there's this thing called evolution? And, you know, we were good Southern Baptists. So bye bye that school.
the the
Um,
1-2 punch of you're out of here.
Yeah, exactly. A few years later, when I was 9, a buddy of mine came to me and he told me that he heard about D&D in school, right? And he's like, "I know how to play it," and I'm like, "Okay." And we sat down. I think there were four of us, and there were no books. There was no nothing. There was no dice. No nothing. You know, it was just like, okay. So, anyways, I'm the dungeon master, and here's this map I drew, and what are you guys gonna do? And we got such a kick out of it that
Hmm.
that I immediately did my best to because I figured out that it was an actual product. See, he didn't even know that at that time, and I did my best to get enough money. I think it was $8.99 at the time to walk
Hmm.
up to the Walgreens on on Orange Blossom Trail, SOBT, and pick up a basic set, a red box.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, after that, I would spend the weekends going to thrift stores with my parents and stuff in the event that I might find something cool. And
Hmm.
I found Mauve. Right? They were $1 a piece. Mauve Basic, Mauve Expert, and I looked at these things, and it was mind blowing. Along the same lines, I had a friend about that time. Ended up meeting him right after that, whose 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 brother had some stuff like Monster and Treasure assortment and those kinds of things. And I would look at those things and mind blown even more because it didn't correspond to anything that was going on in Beckme or BX, right? So because they were really old stuff. So
Hmm.
shortly thereafter, I got my parents to. I asked them to, and they were gracious enough to drive me up to Enterprise 1701,
Nice.
and I found a Dungeon Master's Guide. And I was about that was about in March. It might have been my birthday present for March of 1984.
Hmm.
I got the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it changed my life. I mean, it changed everything about who I am, and I firmly believe that, and I'll believe that till the day I die. Thanks, Gary.
Right on, man. Right on. And I mean, that's the book that that taught us how to speak High Gygaxian, right? That was our English to High Gygaxian.
Yeah, vocabulary, math, bell curves, sociopolitical ideas.
Hmm.
You know, the concept of individuals having attributes. You know, there were a lot of things in there. Like when he compared Constitution, he's like, hey, you know, Constitution. You know, Rasputin certainly had a such and such, and then you go and you're like, okay, I don't know what that means. There's not an internet that's going to tell me what that means. There's not a school that's going to tell me what that means. So I'm going to get my parents to drop me off at the library downtown, and I'm going to find out what that means. And
Hmm.
it's a he was just a fabulous teacher, really.
Yeah, yeah, he really was, and I have often wondered. I mean, in that mad rush from like 77 to really when he finally had to step away. I would like to hope that Gary knew exactly how many guys and girls like you and me who he was tutoring in our off hours.
Right.
Um,
I think so. I hope so too.
so it, I mean, you and I, and probably a lot of people out there in the audience, we had um, very similar upbringings, as it were, of D&D uh, history. Did you continue to play from your adolescence into your teen years, college years, young adulthood, all the way along? Has that been a bridge? Were there long periods without, and then you came back? How did that all go?
Yeah, so that was basically as soon as I discovered it, right after. So when I was 7, I discovered it, walked away, involuntarily. Came to the game in about 83. My family moved around a lot by virtue of my dad's work and whatnot. We moved around a lot, but even if I would lose my friends who played, I would solo play, right? Because I had the Dungeon Master's Guide, I had the solo adventure stuff, and for me, I just enjoyed making characters. Uh, I would sit around and make characters all day long, no
Mhm.
problem, you know. And so I kept that up, but every couple of years, I would find new friends who appreciated the game and stuff. And it was about the age of 12. Some from about 10 to 12, there was nothing except my solo RPG and my imagination. About the age of 12, I came across somebody who ended up being a lifelong friend of mine who was reading the Dragonlance. He saw me reading the Dragonlance book,
Mhm.
and he came up, and then we instantly became friends, and we all compared our power characters. I had created a power character, they had all created power characters because they didn't have any friends. They were just basically nerds. We didn't have friends back then. You had metalheads, you had nerds, and that's what it was. And then afterward, I kept up with them for about I would say probably about 13 years. Broke off broke off a little bit in my early 20s, I would guess, because I became old enough to, buy alcohol, party, that kind of stuff. And I took a little break, but it was short lived, about 2 years. And then I became Forever DM again with second edition. And then I took a break for about 5 years and got fully into the old buddy of mine who I'd met back in middle school at age 12, who saw me reading the Dragonlance book. He just popped out of nowhere. I hadn't seen him in like 5 years, and he's like, "Hey, listen, you want to play D&D?" I don't even remember how he found me, and that's when I got into 3.5. Actually, about 2 years before, I'd gotten into
Mhm.
3.0 with a couple of friends of mine. That was about 2002, but 2005 really set it off again. And we played 3.5 up until about 4E. We played 4E for 6 months maybe, and then I relocated over here to by the coast, and took about a 6 year break, and then kind of got back into it again. but nobody was really interested. So it was again a solo thing until I found your channel.
Right on. And I am certainly glad you did. It's so weird. I say this a lot, but there really is a core of people who are like among the earliest fans. And I remember, and I'll tell you guys out in the audience something. DOOMSWORD sent me like the first swag I think the channel ever got. Like when we had a mail call, I didn't even know if it was on Monday, but Doom sent me. Was it? I know there was the colored supplement one Greyhawk. Was there a Blackmore too, or was it just the Greyhawk?
Well, I did the colored one where the guy had taken like the poured out blood from the beholder or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Let me see if I can put my hands on that. But go ahead and keep talking.
And I think maybe before that, I had an extra Holmes D6 that was in perfect condition.
I have a Holmes D6. There's the supplement one Greyhawk, which
that guy will live on in infamy.
It is a good play copy, and game books are meant to be played with. So I thank you very much for this and for the Holmes D6. The Holmes D6 is pretty awesome. So yeah, you were kind enough early on to throw out to show a little love to the channel, and I greatly appreciate it, man. I really do. And it's nice. I think, like when I talk about it, there are. I think the Dungeon Delvers crowd, counting myself in Florida, is like 5 strong, unless there's a lot of people out there who just listen but don't talk. The spider, that's very cool. The Dungeon Delver crowd here in Florida, but we're spread out. People don't get it. Florida's a pretty large state. Okay, it's not Texas big. It's not like, I drove across Texas all day and I still had Texas to drive across the next day kind of big. But we're not all crammed together around Disney World or over on the beach. So so like you and Harmony Ginger, I think, are the folks that live in proximate range enough to me that I've been fortunate enough to meet. And we have I still owe you a dinner though, because let me tell you guys what, not this past but a year ago this past October, well, we got to go back a little bit, because at the like midsummer, I remember, because you and I met down at Gods and Monsters. You and I,
we did.
We went down to Gods and Monsters. Hey, and the spider lives in Florida too. So there you go.
Yeah,
that sounds like
giving
code.
them the horns.
That sounds like code. The spider lives in Florida too. Has a long brown mustache.
If I can interrupt for a moment,
no, go ahead.
Just to tell you how I first interacted with the channel, because I think it's important.
Tell us that before I start back.
Right. So in early 2020, right, COVID year or whatever, it was about December 15th to about January 15th. I took my family on a road trip to show them all the things that I had seen, all the cities and stuff along the East Coast that I had seen. And we ended up in New York City in December, Christmas Eve. And then we ended up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on Christmas Day and stuff. And we come back after this Christmas vacation and we're all very, very sick. Right. And then the COVID stuff comes out and all that, at least the official documentation of it. And then it started to kind of make sense. I was like, wow, we all came back from Manhattan with like 5 million people standing around and we felt horrible. And I was happy about that and stuff. Everybody was fine and everything, but it was a difficult sickness. And then around December of 2020, I got real sick again, which would have normally been my vacation. I got sick for like 2.5 hours, and I just happened upon YouTube. You were wearing the Christmas hat and stuff, and when the studio was a little different, you were wearing the Christmas hat and stuff. And I was watching some of the live streams. I laid in bed for like 3 weeks,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
and you mentioned Orlando, and you mentioned Enterprise 1701, and then I private messaged you because I was mind blown that there was somebody out there who
Right.
knew what I knew, because I had nobody else to talk to who knew what I knew. And then it went from there. And then I finally got up what would you call it? The courage to decide to play in a live game and join the other live game and stuff like that. But it was your response to me on YouTube as just some rando or whatever that I found particularly awesome.
Well, man, I said it before. I'd like to think that I could remain as down to earth and in touch. If I woke up tomorrow, I had 100,000 subs, that I would be able to, keep on engaging with you guys. And but there's that core that I don't think will ever go away, And you're definitely part of it, and I'm glad, that I was able to make this connection, and that's really what the small audience lets me do. And I think it's beyond just like, yeah, you're a fan of the show and you come on. I mean, it's simpatico. But I was going to say, so we met face to face at Gods and Monsters, which really fills the shoes of Enterprise 1701. It really does kind of recreate that vibe. The spider, yes, we do know about Metamorphosis Alpha. We're all big Jim Ward fans around here. But anyway, so yeah, we met up over there. God, we must have hung out. Probably drove Todd to absolute insanity, because we hung around the store for like a couple of hours. And
incidentally,
I'm sorry.
Incidentally, the hotel that I took my family to, they wanted to go on vacation. I was like, okay, well, let's go to downtown Orlando. And I went to downtown Orlando, and the hotel that I booked was a Westgate right around the corner that happened to have a furry convention.
Oh, no.
On that weekend.
Yikes.
Yes. They had a furry convention on that weekend.
Oh, it's all coming back to me now. But so we're on our way out. And I had, now those of you, and of course you know this too, Dooms, but those of you who've been following the channel this long, I made some offhand comment about hoping that my car could get me home. And I said, I got to fix the damn brakes on this piece of crap. And I kicked the Volkswagen a couple of times. And then Bill, DOOMSWORD here is like, well, I'll come and help you fix it. When do you want it to happen? Now, I am not some samurai who's like, no, honor does not permit me to accept anyone's help or generosity. I must shoulder this burden and move forward myself. No, hell no. If you make the mistake and open your mouth and say, well, I can help out. Yeah, okay, come over here and help. So, yeah, I immediately, and sure enough, it's like this was in September. I remember because it was October, like first or second weekend of October. Bill calls me up. Yeah, I'm on my way. And I was like, cool, I got new brake shoes. And he's like, you might need new rotors. So I stopped by AutoZone and picked those up. So he comes over, and that Volkswagen, that, you remember the dust cover on the right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that thing was Satan. We could not get that bolt off. We ended up like bending it and beating it with
Right.
a hammer to
We were
get the
trying to determine whether to cut off the edge or to
yeah,
beat the edge back. Right.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
we
that
ended up
was fun times.
beating it flat and just putting the new rotor on, and I appreciated that so much. So the car started to fall apart in other ways over the next few months into 2023, but that had nothing to do with you. The fact that I went from a car that was so unsafe to drive it wouldn't let itself drive anymore, um, to being drivable for the rest of the time was amazing. And so I thank you. It must have the Dave. It must have remembered that I kicked it, because it then proceeded to leak oil. It lost its cooling system. Ate part of its electrical. So it was a bad run from like October to February of that year. Not fun. Not fun at all. The next year. But anyway, so yes, you, my friend, are pretty damn awesome, and I appreciate it. I still owe you, though. I still owe you a meal for that assistance you gave me.
Right. We didn't have time or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember I had to get home,
yeah.
but it was a very gracious offer,
Yeah, you got there at
and
10, and I think, after the bullshitting and having to take an extra hour to fix that dust cover, it was like it's 4 o'clock and I'm just starting to boil the ribs, and I know your wife needed, because folks, Melbourne is a stretch from Orlando. It's not like 100 miles or something like that, but
well, it's down south of Sebastian, in fact,
yeah,
so it's about it's about a 2 hour drive up to
yeah,
hour and 45. But also though, I wanted to make sure that I got to walk around in the studio with you and stuff. So I think we spent an
right on.
hour doing that
Yeah,
before we ever even thought about anything else.
it's truth.
And it
It's
was
truth.
cool.
And to be clear, walking around the studio, I mean, it was basically he and I like standing in the there's no walking in here. There's like scooting along the side of the table, then scooting down over here. So yeah, there's not a lot of walking, but no, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and we'll do it again soon. So, but
Yeah, don't let him fool you. That even the old studio, that like, if you're a nerd and you walk into that place and it's just yours, you're like, what have I discovered? It's like treasure type C or whatever it is. There's a bit of everything, and there's some stuff that you might think about pilfering, particularly if you're a kinder or something like that.
you'll draw back a bloody nub is all I have to say. But no, I my dude, I absolutely appreciate being able to hang out with you and everything. So you actually have, now for those of you who may not know this, because it's not like you haven't started to grow it yet, but you actually have a YouTube channel, do you not?
I do. It's one of those things. So I started the YouTube channel in order to run some VTT games and
Okay.
and to capture those and play them. But sometimes I just get a little bit ridiculous and do some ridiculous stuff on there. Like, say, singing metal songs at the top of my lungs in the middle of the night. So there's a bit of that. There's a couple of VTT sessions with Fantasy Grounds. I used to use that exclusively, and the videos that are on there are of my original, not my original, but my gaming group that I got back together after about a 15-year absence, after one of the guys passed away. And the concept of his funeral and all that stuff kind of split the gaming group apart, and I didn't talk to them for years. So there's a couple of videos of them there with portions of their family, and that's how it started. And then I left it alone. I thought about doing some short reads of Conan stuff, REH stuff specifically, and then just one night I started singing some metal songs, and I don't think I had done anything recently on there. But the intention of it, there's plenty of intentions. You know what they say about the road to hell, though, right?
Right, right. But anyway, I have put the link up there, guys. If you want to check out some excellent REH reads for Tower of the Elephant, please throw Dooms a review there, a review, a subscription rather, on his channel. So you have been like the central nervous system of the AD&D games at the Great Underground Online Gaming Con. And I know recently you've run, you've run Tomb of Horrors. By the way, congratulations. Very well done. I heard nothing but screams of terror from that Discord. So bravo. Just slid them right into the deep fryer. Good on you.
Well, thank you. You always kind of wonder though afterward, and you know this, or maybe you don't, because maybe maybe I'm just a softie, but you always feel afterwards, you're like, what did I do it right? Did I kill them all correctly, perfectly?
Yeah.
Now I did give them a couple of chances, and both of those chances failed, and I felt I felt absolved by that, at least.
Yeah, and guys, when he told me, look, if there's some of you folks out there who played in the Dooms of Horror game, when you were in a hallway that started to slope downwards, and he started to count, what did you possibly imagine was going to happen to you? Did you really? Oh, okay. Well, we'll just throw ourselves with it. That was such a great bat rap. Thank you so much for ruthlessly killing them off, for being so foolish as to just lie down on the floor. They just that's man. That's like your fajitas just climbing onto the spatula for you as you get ready to put them in the pan.
I will say that I did, 5, 4, 3, 2. I let it be a second and a half between counts.
Right. Yeah,
but I think they were so sick of it that they just wanted to go anyway.
A 5 coming out of your mouth would have been the point at which I would have been through the door of that chamber. So
yeah, and I tried to be, ominous about it as well.
Well, so some people, they got to learn the hard way. But now you've run custom adventures at the Guac, and so I've got to ask. First of all, any thoughts on publishing those?
Yeah, I actually do. So the first Guac, right? I was like, hey, I'm just going to run AD&D modules. But then I realized that the biggest thing that I realized was that, hey, if I'm going to run an AD&D module, I can generally trust everybody, but there's not a guarantee that I can trust everybody, and it's going to be equitable, across the line of players, because you're going to have a bunch of players who haven't played it. And then you might have somebody who hasn't played it, and they're like, hey, I'm going to pick it up on DTRPG, and I'm going to read the whole thing, particularly in a tournament environment like the one Guac. So the first Guac we had, I set up a bunch of games, and I think I only played Call of Cthulhu with Dungeon Minister, T-Presence, and a couple other people. And then the second Guac, I was like, okay, this is going to be a tournament. But what I realized was I had to change I had to change a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
then this most recent one, I took bits and pieces of various stuff and combined them together, inspirational types of things, and
Mhm.
including largely my own work, and tried to run that. Tomb of Horrors being the exception, and the game prior to that was called The Grim Gap, but that was actually an adaptation of the Fell Pass from
Mhm.
Dragon Magazine
Okay.
30 something. So way back in 79, because it had a beholder in it. And I wanted to see how people would. I was like, hell, 9 to 11, let's fight a beholder. But I got a
Well,
bunch of adventures out there, and I do intend to publish those. Hopefully, I've got a lot of things I want to publish. It's just a matter, you know how it goes. It's it's a hard thing to kind of beat the imposter syndrome, and it's a hard thing to to get to the point of, oh well, okay, I can publish this. What am I going to do? I'm going to draw all the art, or I'm no artist, you know.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're for. I think now I'm gonna get in trouble with this, particularly if Kabuki Kid is out there. I'm gonna get in trouble with this, but I think your first time out, like if you're just trying to get something on DTRPG and you're honest about it, I think using a little bit of AI art just to get out the door is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean,
I agree.
do you have any strong feelings about that?
I do. Well, I agree with you completely. I think that I like in my own mind, the AI revolution to sort of the revolution of moving from LPs, from albums, from vinyl to CD, and then to MP3. The people who benefit from those technologies in the first place need to find a way to harness that technology, right? So the move to MP3 all was Napster. Oh, everybody's downloading this. What does Metallica do? Metallica sues. What does Apple do? They develop a store where you can create your MP3s, and now they're a multi-trillion-dollar corporation. And most of their devices and the current concept of a smartphone, whether or not I like it, is a reality because of what they've done. Sometimes there's transformational within business or technology or anything. Sometimes there's things that you can transformational things that you can just block off, and sometimes
Mhm.
there's transformational things that you're just gonna have to, if you can't beat them, join them. And now that AI is built into Photoshop, AI is built into Illustrator, because I have
Yeah.
a Creative Suite or whatever. I can bring something into Photoshop, and I can use AI to completely modify it. So what makes that different? So like I can take a picture of myself, my family, whatever, bring it into Photoshop, completely manipulate it with AI, and put it out as an original image. If it's sanctioned by the corporations, who's winning if the indie gets crushed? The
Yeah.
corporations are winning. And
Oh,
it's really unfortunate, and then you have individuals who decry the dangers of AI and stuff like that, but they don't realize that what they're doing is, in the end, and this is just opinion, in the end, they're removing the indies from embracing it, and that's exactly what the corporations generally and typically want, because they're going to move on without you.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, keep up, get out of the way, or get crushed. That's really the reality of it. And, you're talking about things that AI is this fairly simple application that I have guests on with StreamYard. StreamYard will now make a thumbnail if you want it. You can literally type in a few things and it will generate a thumbnail for the video that you're going to be streaming if you're doing something on YouTube. It is in Filmora. I use Filmora Pro 13, and Filmora Pro 13 has basic text to video tools. And we've seen what is it, Aura, I think. The Aura model is pretty advanced, and it's not something you would use on your desktop. But I mean, it produced like a 4-minute 1800s gold rush San Francisco town flyover. Like,
right, that would be Sora, right? Sora.
Oh, Sora, yeah, Sora.
The video AI tool.
Yeah,
these corporations are never going to let that go.
No, it's out there. If you need it to take that first step, I say why not? Now, once you've got the money rolling in, absolutely, go to Errol, go to Tracy, go to Darlene, go to Diesel LaForce, go to Jeff Easley. But there's that initial push, and that barrier. If that barrier is art, then don't let that trip you up. Although I will say, you got a nice attaboy from the Dave who says, just effing do it. The art is less important than the effort you put in. And you, my friend, have put in a great deal of effort. Now, you bring up, you mentioned you did a tournament, not this year, but back in 2023 for Guac 2. You did do a tournament. Is that something you'll do again, or was that just kind of a one-off experiment? What are your thoughts on tournamenting in the future, whether it's at Guac or an in real life convention or however?
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'll tell you something. Over the last 3 years, and the first year, there was only really the one Call of Cthulhu game, and I thought that, hey, this is running so long because there are so many investigative elements to it. Next time I run a COC game, I'll do it a little different. And additionally, you'll get guys like T Presence and Dungeon Minister who will be like, okay, so what's the model of the car that we have? And you're like, so it's a Ford, it's a Ford Model A. And they're like, yeah, does that have a crank engine or not? Do we need to go ahead and crank it up? and that's fun stuff, But what I realized is when I did the tournament is it wasn't so much that, it was trying to strip down this content, particularly with AD&D, try to strip it down, make the combats go as quickly as possible and all that. And toward the end of that tournament, I felt like I got to the point where that wasn't really a problem. So this next time I ran, it wasn't a tournament. But what I began to realize there is that everybody wants to have a good time, right? So It's outside of the concept of a tournament. Nobody's trying to win anything. Nobody's trying to move necessarily fast. They want to hang out and they want to talk. And that's totally fine because I have a great time talking with them too. So it's really hard. Really, really a lot more difficult, especially within the confines of, hey, I've got 5 days and I'm going to run 5 adventures and they're going to be 4 hours. Within, setting up that sort of environment, it's really hard to build something that's perfect because it's not going to be perfect every time. And I mean, it almost is like you feel like, hey, well, maybe we should just get together an hour early. Just talk, and then there's just this door that opens up into a room, and there's a bad guy in there. What do you guys do?
Right. And the con experience can be so different in that respect, because it's like, your slot is from X hour to Z hour. And when we sit down at a table to game, it's like, hey, how was your week? And, did you see this movie? And that TV show just came out. And, oh, did you eat over here? You can order some pizza. And it's, oh, let me see that miniature you painted. And there's so much of that comradely discussion that we take for granted in the day-to-day game. But when you're at a con, it's like, look, I have 3 hours, I have 4 hours to DM or play, so let's shut up, game on, let's go. And it can be a good vibe, but it can also be a very different vibe in that respect.
Yeah. And you want to be able to build something that, somebody's not going to die in the first 20 minutes, right? They're like, hey, I'm here for a 4-hour slot and I just died in 20 minutes. And now what? My next game ain't for, 3 hours and 45 minutes. What the hell? Right. But you also end up in a situation where if it goes too long, then somebody's like, hey, I got to make another game, or hey, I got to go to sleep or whatever. So it's a real challenge. And I'm very happy because I ran games at cons way in the past. I used to go to conventions on a fairly regular basis, particularly in Atlanta, and I would run games back there and whatnot. And but this is being able over the last 3 years to run 16 to 18 sessions has taught me a lot, but it's still a process to be improved upon. But I highly encourage people to run convention style games, specifically games with time limits, and see how that works out, because it's a totally different animal.
Well, I mean, you talk about time limits, and of course, we had blocked off times. It's a little fast and loose when you're at a virtual convention that costs $0 to attend. I get that, but was it your Thursday to Friday game or your Friday to Saturday game where you started at 8? There was one of your sessions you guys didn't wrap till like 3:30 in the morning. Good Lord.
Well, so that would be my next point. I think, I think there's a point where you have to kind of stomp on the players and say, okay, you got to speed them up. And unfortunately, they're really having a good time just shooting the stuff, right? So you kind of have to feel that out, because I'll tell you this, right? That one game was 8 o'clock until around 3:15. The other game was 8 o'clock until around 2. The other game was 8 o'clock until around 2:30. The other game was 8 o'clock until around 3. And then the Tomb of Horrors was 4 o'clock until about 10:30. Okay, and you're also jumping in that game about an hour beforehand to make sure that everybody who shows up knows what, to get organized. So, and I don't mind doing that, but people get tired and stuff.
Sure.
So realistically, they were all minimum 6 hours, maximum 8 hours.
And that dovetails nicely into Alan has a great question here. For each game you DM'd, now I ran Space Hulk and Dungeon and that and how to play first edition AD&D, and at 4 hours I was like, well, I hope you guys had fun. Get out. I was done at that point. So I had nowhere near the stamina you did. So this is for you. Dooms, how long did it take you to prepare, and did you have problems using the VTT software? If I could slightly answer, at least from a 10,000 foot perspective, the times when I dipped in to we did lose your camera, Dooms, or I don't know if you shut that off, but anyway, what I
Just for
did.
a moment.
Okay, it looked like your VTT was rolling hot, but you tell us.
So that's kind of complicated. So as far as VTT for convention, new players, people you don't know, really anything like that, I'll just say it. Just use Foundry. It's the simplest. Maybe Owlbear Rodeo. You can get by with some Roll20 or whatever, but I like Foundry for the occlusions that are put in there, and it's all web based, right? So your light sources work around the occlusions and all that, and it's all web based. Nobody needs to install anything. So there's no way that I would personally use a VTT unless it were Foundry, or if I was working with a kind of a sort of a theater of the mind approach, in which case I might use Roll20, but I might just use Discord, right? So,
Yeah.
and things like, and I love Fantasy Grounds. I built the Ozark rule set for Fantasy Grounds. I built the AD&D options and house rules extension for Fantasy Grounds. I've used it many times. There's a couple videos on my channel and stuff like that, but there's no way you're going to get convention players into that because they have to install software and do some things.
And then you've got to have a host connection that they can connect to, and just
right.
Yeah,
Foundry, the good thing. Yeah, and those are the problems with it, really.
Yeah, Fantasy Ground strikes me as one of those things that, well, this works really well for us. I bet we could, I bet other people would want to use this. And indeed, the fact that it has such a strong user base, I mean, it's got a marketplace, This is not some one-off thing. But they're just from a UI standpoint, there's a lot of stuff in there that strikes me as, well, this made sense to us. So we're just going to assume that other people can work around this and not worry too much about making it all that user friendly, was my takeaway from Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah, and the additional takeaway is that, to add on to that is that, hey, this made sense to us back in 2008, and then everybody built all this stuff for it in 2008, and we don't want to break all that stuff that people are using now, so we're going to continue to allow the software to be in a 2008 place in a 2024 world. And Foundry doesn't suffer from that. One thing about Fantasy Grounds is that the developers, people like me, and people like Celestia and EOTB, these kind of guys, they continue, even though they might have moved along for their own games, they continue to support what they built over there, just because of the love of the game. Okay, but Foundry's the best way to go. You set it up on the host side, in my opinion, either Roll20 or Foundry, whatever you prefer. You set it up on the host side, and everybody can connect with a web browser. No credentials, no logins needed, none of that kind of stuff. It comes with its own little complications or whatever, but I think that the thing that always takes me the most time is building the maps. Because I build those in Dungeon Draft. So I could take anybody's battle maps, and I can go into Foundry, I can go into Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, whatever, and draw some walls, some Fog of War and those kinds of things. But if I build the map in Dungeon Draft specifically, I mean, you could use Dungeon Alchemist too, but if I build the map in Dungeon Draft, it will export as a JPEG with an XML file or a JSON file of all of the wall information. So I don't have to do anything with that. I can just bring that in with a importer, So I tend to spend most of the time on battle maps, and I'm trying to get a little bit better at that. But I've made about I would say about 75 of them now, about 50 of them for the guac. So I have you end up building your collection of those things, but that's the most amount of prep. And then typically with the game, what I'll do is I'll bring a PDF into the VTT, or have a PDF open on my other monitor, and then I'll make some journal entries or notes in the VTT so that to decrease the prep time. But I find myself, if I have like 5 of these to do, the danger is that you do the first one and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this perfect. I'm going to set it all up for myself, and I'm going to know where everything is. And then the next game comes along and you're like, okay, I'm almost done with that one. I'll do it a little less perfect, but I'll know where everything is. And by the end of like the 5th or 6th session, you're like, okay, where's the notes, man? you know. So you have to be careful of that. So I would say minimal prep in terms of notes. Have the PDF or printable information next to you. Limit the scope of the adventure and spend a little bit less time on your maps. The maps being beautiful is great, but think about what you got to work with.
I understand completely what you're saying as far as that goes, and I did pure theater of the mind, and as far as prep, to kind of answer Alan's question, I was theater of the mind the whole night, and I just ran the sample dungeon out of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And you might think, well, how did you stock it up, Bill? I didn't. The character creation took a couple because I wanted to introduce people to how to create AD&D characters. So it was part lecture and part actual play session. And by the time we got into the dungeon, sans one random encounter that the party did not want to investigate on the way to the ruined monastery dungeon, they literally had all of the lettered encounters in the monastery dungeon, which is like 4. The rest of them you as a DM have to fill out, and you can go with what Gary says, kind of hints at. But yeah, the party, they had a wandering monster encounter. They fought the large spider. They discovered the 50 gold piece garnet in the skull, and then they went down the hall into the cistern room and got the key in the ruined map. And at that point it was midnight, and I was like, thank you all for being here. So it worked out well for me, but I would have gladly run longer if I had said, hey, the dungeon's called the Monastery Dungeon and here's pre-gens, I would have filled it in. And we would have, we would have made do with what we had. But honestly, I think, and this is something that I have, this is something that I have reiterated since the start of the show. When Dooms and I, we talk about Foundry or Fantasy Grounds or Roll20 or Owlbear or whatever, or I'll say, well, I have a camera set up, and this is what I did for the board games. I had a camera pointing at the board, and I moved pieces as players instructed me to. I was a referee for Dungeon, and I was a referee for Space Hulk. You don't need any of that. All you need is a simple way to connect to the internet. Everything else is optional. Everything else is optional, whether you're running or playing. I've had people DM me games off of their phone because they had no other, like their computer was down or whatever. And so they're, okay, I'm going to plug my phone into the charger so I don't drop power. And we're going to be on on Discord, but I'm using my phone, so it's really, really simple. Just have a way that you can talk to people, and everything else just moves right along. So don't get
right.
caught up in
I
that
mean, they had
is what I'm saying.
PBM, right?
Yeah.
I mean, back in Dragon Magazine, you could sign up for a PBM game back when you were a kid and stuff like that. I will say there's a definite advantage. So there's an advantage to theater of the mind if you were to do this type of thing, but there's a definite advantage to having a board set up. It's all just a matter of perspective and what you want to do. One thing that you have to watch out for that I forgot to mention with a VTT is that people see the tokens and they will just drag them wherever.
Yes, that is, I think screwing around with the VTT environment is the modern day equivalent of stacking up your dice and waiting for somebody to bump the table, and then they go clattering
Right.
when you're trying to have a dramatic moment, and Jim over there is licking the bottom of his D6s to see how tall the tower of D6s he can get. And it comes crashing down on your painted Ralparthas, and you just want to roll up your battle mat and start swinging it like a sword.
You gotta keep that combat, whatever facility you have within the VTT, you gotta keep it paused and not let anybody move.
No, because we will scribble on it, we will move the tokens around, we will look in places that we're not supposed to.
Right.
It's the fidgeting. Guys, it's the fidgeting, and we'll do it all the time and constantly. So you're absolutely right. You definitely have to do that. You mentioned earlier, and I want to take a hot minute to mention this just before I forget, because we're at the hour mark. We could keep going. It's up to you, Dooms. How much time do you have? I don't want to keep you too late. I know you've gone on for a bit. No, you have gone on for a bit.
Yo, Adrian, I did it. I ended up on Dungeon Delver stream.
Just your wife lean in with a razor blade and a spit bucket.
Yeah, cut me, Mick. I'll do whatever.
I had so much fun with the Rocky kayfabe, I forgot my train of thought. Oh, right. So we do have a guest tomorrow night. I just want to pause, kind of a commercial break. We do have a guest tomorrow night. The one and only Matt Finch will be here tomorrow night. So I hope you guys, that's Mythmere. He will be here tomorrow night. Please be here for that game. He's an awesome guest. Always a lot of fun to have Matt here. We have some good guests coming up. Next week we have Sky Hernstrom. I believe the week after that we have Rose Estes. The week after that, I'm not sure. But the first week of June, guys, we've got the one and only Sandy Peterson. Sandy Call of Cthulhu Peterson. Sandy Doom/Doom 2 Peterson. Sandy Quake Peterson will be in the house the first week of June for our guest shop. So don't miss that. And you guys will find out about it the closer we get. I'm excited about that. Sandy just confirmed he was going to be on the show, so I'm hyped, and I hope you guys will too. So I'm really looking forward to that. And but speaking of Call of Cthulhu, that's another place. Is Doom? You've been in. You've been in now for a couple of years running our Halloween horror mini campaign. Playing,
yeah.
And
then, that's been really enjoyable. I mean, I don't want to blow smoke and stuff, Bill, but you are a fantastic COC GM, right? So way back in the day, I had this friend Brett, right? And this friend Brett of mine was a really old school gamer. He was about 4 years older than us. This was when I was about 14. And he was about 4 years older than us, so he'd be around 18. And we had back and forth on all kinds of stuff, and we spent a lot of time together. And good friends in my group of friends at that time. That was like that was like my personal like stand by me time in terms of how tight our little friend group was or whatever. And
Hmm.
Brett was a massive H.P. Lovecraft fan, massive. He had all the books. He came from a family with a good bit of money and all that kind of stuff. All the H.P. Lovecraft books and all this stuff, and Call of Cthulhu was his thing. And he introduced me to it without even having any experience with H.P. Lovecraft at all. And it was great. He had read everything. He was some physicist or studying to be a physicist at UCF. And what's really cool is one day he took us as kids. I mean, I considered myself a kid. I was like 16, and he got us into the UCF, the top library floor of UCF, where
I'm
they have
familiar with it.
like a
Yes.
night. Yeah, they have like a 1974 facsimile made print of the Necronomicon or whatever that you can look at
Nice.
up in there. And because UCF was all about that, their mailing lists and their BBC stuff and all that was
Hmm.
all about H.P. Lovecraft. But and he was a really really good keeper. But same thing with Gamma World, man. Your stuff is you have a spectacular talent for those things. Call of Cthulhu and Gamma World specifically. I'm sure there's other things, but those are what jumped to mind because those are the things that I've played in.
Well, I do appreciate it, and I hope you will be making your return this October when we do that. I know it's we tend to think, oh, October. What are you talking about, October and Halloween, guys? It's not that far off. We're in May. Next month is June. Then you got July and August, and then, bam, September. We're like that close to college football and thinking about fall and get your Christmas list together. It is a process of getting old, you young punks. So trust me
Yeah.
when I say it is a lot closer than you think.
The
So
older you get, the faster you get older. That's a that's a certainty.
yeah, yeah, that is an unfortunate reality. And yeah, you guys, so don't think it's gonna slow down on you, because it's not. It is not.
No.
um so you'll be joining us for that game, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully I can do something a little bit special this year and drive you guys insane faster. Um, so now I have been I have met your guys, your little humans.
Yes.
Have they started to show any interest in some tabletop gaming?
Yes, they have. They're still big into video gaming. That's to extract them from that. It's kind of like the '80s or whatever, right? You want to
Right.
extract them from that, you got to pull up with a windowless white van, grab them, scoop them up, throw them in, and deprogram them.
Right.
And I kind of try to do that, uh, you know, emotionally and stuff, and I spend time with them. The youngest, I'll admit, it does irritate me sometimes, but the youngest will come in to the office while I'm trying to work on other things, and it's all about dice game. And dice game is we roll dice, polyhedral dice, and whoever wins wins, whoever loses loses. Best it can be best 99 out of 100 if that's what he feels like doing. Um, so I finally taught him to spin the dice. When you first discovered polyhedrals and you
Right.
figured
Yeah.
you
You
figured
put
out you
that
could
D20 up
spin
on its corner
D4s.
and
hmm And yeah, you get good at it. You could spin D4s, and all that. So I've kind of taught him that stuff. Um, and he's backed off a little on dice games and is doing some other stuff. But they're about at the point that I'm going to introduce them to, full tabletop. And what that will be, it'll be the chess eggs, the Stadler markers, or the vis-a-vis, and the regular dice, because I've got a ton of old school dice. I've got newer dice, and then of course the dice I print, the dice I mold and cast, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll get them into that soon.
yeah, excellent. Lord Corian, a question here. Although I did want to point out we do have a message from Canik here, and I just wanted to put that up on the screen. So there you go. But did everybody get that? Everybody get that from Canik? She's loving cock. So anyway, move on. There's a question. I'm sorry. I saw something pop up? Did somebody miss that? Let's put that back. There you go. Okay. Anyway, she said that last year, just at random during a live stream. Bill's dying. R.I.P. Canik. R.I.P. Bill. Anyway, but no. There was an actual question. I tripped myself up. He said, "How old was your son when you introduced him to the dice?"
Yeah. So they're. I mean, so the first son, my oldest son, that was about 6 years old, and the other one was about 3, because he's 3 years behind his brother. But the oldest one has taken more towards learning obscure facts. Like he'll come to me and he'll tell me things like, "Hey, did you know that in 1997 there was a particular air crash that did such and such?" Or, "Hey, the Xbox came out then, the Nintendo came out this year," and that kind of stuff. And the younger son is more of the hands-on type. So he's the one that comes to me and wants to do dice battles. Now, the older son, he comes to me, he doesn't want to do dice battles. He wants to do, "Okay, I'm a goblin. What are you?" So it's just a little different between them. But they've got similar imaginations. It's how they use them.
That's great, man. That's great. I do want to answer a question. Dirty History and Hobbies said here. I have all my original dice set except for the D4. No idea what happened to it. Dirty History and Hobbies, if I can tell you, but just walk around for a while trying to remember where you had it last, and you will find it eventually. Just make sure you're in your bare feet, and you will find it.
Either that, or it's already buried in your foot.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
when you were a kid, you break off like some pencil lead.
You can't tell.
You're like, "Oops, I broke off a pencil lead in my arm." And then you'll look like 5 years later, and it's like, "Oh, there's a piece of lead sticking in my arm."
Yeah. Yeah, I walked around. I was sure that I had given myself a stone bruise in my heel one day. And this is not recently. This is a good many years ago. So this isn't like, like I was joking about diabetic neuropathy, but like, damn it, I stepped on a rock and I've got like this dull stabby bruise, and I crossed my foot over and I looked down and yeah, there's a thumbtack in my heel. Yeah, I
right.
just all day I walk around with a thumbtack in my heel, like
Yeah.
a goddamn cartoon character.
You ever get
Fortunately, I
blood
have pretty thick
poisoning back in
talus,
the day?
so, yeah, no, fortunately not.
Yeah, where the little red line would run up your ankle.
Uh,
Yeah, that's good times.
I got that from a spider bite once on my upper thigh, and I'm just gonna. That's the end of that discussion. That is as far as we discuss about that. But so you did mention your casting stuff, and I know like you and I have talked a lot extensively about 3D printing, and indeed, you know, you've helped me out greatly by doing some doing some analysis when I was having some print fails, and you know, I've tried to help you equally. So
You have.
yeah, you're 3D printing, but you're also you're casting. You're actually doing rubber casting of dice now, or is that something that you're going to be doing, or what's going on with that?
And I'm doing it. I need to bring like a product to market. What I would ultimately like to do with that is, you got Threshold Dice Works. You got the what is it? The little box, the little home spot. I'm sure you have one.
Yeah, I got it as a Christmas gift one year from Volcano God. It is yeah, it's
Don't drop
sitting
that
right
dragon,
here.
Bill.
I'm not gonna dig it out because stuff will fall.
Yeah, and you don't want to crush no OC set either.
No, not again. Not again.
Yeah, so one thing that I was thinking about doing with that, and I've got the molds made, and I've casted a couple of prototype sets. Is we've got a lot of basic and expert and just BX and BECME sets out there that don't have any dice, and people
Right.
aren't going to get their hands on these dice. I've got probably 200 or so of those dice, but other people, it's not something that somebody can easily grab onto, somebody who wasn't there at the time, because there was nothing better than opening the red box from Walgreens that I bought when I was a kid, and coloring in the dice, and then you rub it off with a cloth and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, so that you can push it down in there and not have the crayon come out and all that. It's a special experience. And then going to the thrift store and finding mold bay dice and finding that they're completely different. The D20 is tiny, for example. Everything's rounded off. There's flash
Yeah.
on the ends. Yeah, so I felt that molding those, because I have so many of them, is something that I want to put in a little box set, and for a nominal fee, to sell them to people. Obviously, would have to make a little bit of money, but so many of those box sets are missing dice. The same thing with the just the regular percentile dice that would come with Star Frontiers,
Yeah.
later editions of
Boot
Gangbusters,
Hill.
Boot Hill, Top Secret.
Yeah.
Early Top Secret came with pink and white D20s, but the later stuff, people just don't see. And casting those maintains all of the imperfections. But I also have, from some dude named Frank, some prototype TSR dice that were taken out of the Sheridan Springs office, evidently. They were just like lying in a bucket when they were cleaning out the offices, and I have those, and I've made a mold out of those as well.
Excellent. So, well, one thing I can say is I would love it. I would absolutely love it to see replacement dice, because I now have, and they're in pretty bad shape. Hopefully, I can maybe someday get them restored somehow. But I now have an expert and a basic set. I would not hate to have dice and crayon sets for them again. Are you going to do them in higher impact plastic than apparently the Kraft cheese that TSR made them out of back in the day?
Yeah, and that depends on what people want. I thought about going about it different ways, and I built prototypes of each. With a with an epoxy resin, and
Uh-huh.
then one with a polyester. And the polyester is the low impact stuff. It's easy to color and all that kind of stuff, but I think I'll go both directions on that. And it's something that I really want to do, but I really got involved with this other project that people end up having mixed feelings about and may like and may not like and stuff like that. And that's basically rewriting the player's handbook and the monster manual, all the spells and all that stuff, and rewriting that in a way that I can stick it in Creative Commons, and apply it to multiple different types of game systems, right? So, and us AD&D guys, we might not have any reason to buy a product like that, but it really irritates me that OSE or Labyrinth Lord or any of these games can come out with an advanced version of their game, and it's not actually AD&D, but they pretend like it is. And that's something that that's my personal crusade, and I've got most of that written. We'll see.
No, I absolutely get it. I understand, and I mean, I've this has kind of been my bully pulpit too. Has been get your shit sold with Osric and Swords and Wizardry, but for God's sake, if you're going to play, and you can get it, play with OD&D and AD&D. I don't. It gets under my bridge work. Not at the people who created the games, but at the people who glommed onto them, onto Osric and onto Swords and Wizardry. And it's going to sound like I'm slamming Swords and Wizardry when Matt's going to be here tomorrow. I promise, Matt, if you're watching, I'm not. I swear I'm not. But third parties, players who are, oh, this is so much better because it's written so much plainer and so much clearer. These are the kinds of people that, like, if they did a personality write-up of themselves, would list sandwich as their favorite food. Like
Right, and yes.
Their favorite car is a Toyota Corolla 4-door. Their hard kink is pretty girls. Come on, it's trying to sell people on any clone, whether it's Labyrinth Lord, whether it's Osric, whether it's DCC, whether it's Hackmaster. On, well, it's not written in High Gygaxian. It's clear to understand. That's like trying to sell me on a Kids Bop version of Black Sabbath's self-titled first album.
Exactly. And I want to answer Orbital Air real quick, or at least respond to the comment that he made. White Box is excellent for just a little single FMAG. You can buy it for like $7 on Amazon. You can read it in an hour. White Box, excellent system. And that's really all you need for the most part if you want to play OD&D in its origination. But most of the people who are interested in playing OD&D are they're interested in something earlier, and they'll move on from that.
Yeah.
So I really feel like, I mean, OSE is copy and paste from everything that came before it. Labyrinth Lord was copy and paste from everything that came before it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a mess. Every time you copy and paste it, it's kind of like the Xerox thing, right? Every time you copy it, you lose a little bit of resolution.
Yeah.
And I patently refuse to let Gygax's ideas die, and I patently refuse to not share my knowledge before I'm dead of what I think he meant by some of the concepts that he put in his game.
Certainly, certainly.
Yeah, and
And
for people to take that and condense it down and be like, oh, this is OSE Advanced, this is Labyrinth Lord Advanced, this
mhm,
is, there's a number of other game systems that I won't mention, but I'm not letting the guy die like that, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely not. And to be clear, to be 100% clear, I love this. Okay. Swords and Wizardry, I'm pointing at the set from Frog God, but Matt's got a great set and he's going to talk about it tomorrow. Osric, those came at a time when we like the old schoolers' back was against the wall. You could pay, at that time, $50 for a single AD&D volume, couple $100 for an OD&D set, or you could go without, unless you wanted to hoist the Jolly Roger. These right here, the Swords and Wizardry and Osric, were absolutely essential, and I think today still are absolutely essential. And I don't think Matt would argue, and I don't think that Stuart would argue that you should you should eschew Gary's work. It's just that there are people out there that do, and it's not the fault of Swords and Wizardry, and it's not the fault of Osric, and I'm not faulting them at all. I mean, and here's a fun little reality. I mean, I have over here on the shelf, I've got the somebody sent the OD&D books to Lulu and got them bound in a single volume, and all the supplements bound in another volume. If I took those to a free RPGD and was running OD&D, and somebody was like, oh, classic D&D, he's not paying attention, yoink, I'd be irritated for like 5 minutes and then be like, son of a gun, and open up the PDF with my phone and continue on. If it was any of my books, if it was my white box set, I would go full Charles Bronson. I would absolutely, you punk, it would be, I would put some hair on the walls in Minecraft YouTube. So for for that respect, for a portable in-print OD&D that you can take somewhere and not worry that you're carrying a museum piece with you, they can't be beat. And Great Old Ones, I think, hits on something very important here. And this is what you were talking about earlier, Dims. Finding VTTs that run real BX, 1E, and OD&D. Copyright's a killer. And it absolutely is.
Exactly. And that's not going to change. And that's why still, no matter what I'm doing, I built these things in Fantasy Grounds to run my own game before I decided to kind of jump ship or whatever. But that's why I continue to maintain them. Each and every little thing, no matter what I'm doing, I consider it, even though it's completely free, it's a consumer product that needs to be out there to preserve a legacy. And the books that I'm working on, you know, somebody's got to do it, right? And I'm willing to take the hit, whatever. I'm rewriting both of those, which are primarily done, both of PHB, at least the spells for PHB, and the monsters out of the monster manual, and rewriting those. And I'm going to release them in Creative Commons. And if Wizards has something to say about it, they can come at me. And I don't even care. Because I want people to be able to take those products and use them to take the advanced concepts. I've got a fighting supplement that I've built with flowcharts and stuff like that. A unarmed combat supplement that I've built with flowcharts and stuff like that. And I want people to be able to take these things and plug them in to their OSR games, because it's really, really unfortunate from my perspective that the OSR has become either OD&D or BX. You know, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think the OSR should have ever become BECME, but the OSR should have been founded, and it kind of was founded until it got taken away for whatever reasons. It was founded on concepts that came from AD&D. And
Well, yeah.
those concepts of AD&D, which were Gygax's magnum opus, really the magnum opus of anyone who's ever really designed a role-playing game, have been filtered out until it's going to disappear. And
Yeah. I don't,
OSE is one of the main culprits of that.
I will take the blowback also for saying this, but this is a hill I will die on. And I know you and I, Dooms, have had a lot of discussion about this. I'm gonna sail into some dangerous waters here. I'm gonna tread on some controversy. And Dooms, if you don't agree with this, then absolutely you can say so. But I mean, I started the OSR.
I agree.
It began with me. I was the person putting it. I was self-publishing AD&D modules before.
Right.
I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to get into mudslinging. Before a lot of people who decided that they were the guiding voices of capital THE, capital OSR popped up around 2007. You know, I never wanted to lay claim to it, but when people start talking about the OSR and, you know, be seen reading this blog and quoting that blog and following this person and that person on social media, I was just like, I'm sorry, and who are you again? You know, because this has been a thing. So, you know, that's something that has kind of that has kind of stuck in a negative way with, you know, with myself, is that there is the OSR, and you have efforts like yours, DOOMSWORD, to preserve AD&D, which is what the R part of OSR is. You know, it's revival. It was bringing it back when nobody was doing it. And you're as much a part of that as somebody like Eye of the Beholder, like Matt Finch, like Stuart Marshall. You're just as much a part of that. And it's been alternately interesting and infuriating to watch kind of how that whole thing is kind of developed. But you, I gather, have kept your head above the noise and above the din of the crowd, and not gotten dragged down in these cult of personality discussions. And so I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, and that's what I would like to do, and I appreciate that you recognize that. I also appreciate that it was at a time that it was a necessary hiatus from my D&D playing. The period between about 2006 and it was really 2005, 2006, 2007. I still had my games. I wasn't DMing anything. I was playing in games whenever friends could come up from Tampa from a couple hours away, and we could spend the weekend and stuff like that. But see, I was just playing 3.5, and you were in the trenches at that time, and that fits the period of time that I have that I didn't actually realize and recognize what was happening to the game and the legacy of the game. And that's why it's, you know, that's one of the many reasons it's been so valuable to me personally to have made your acquaintance and found the channel and whatnot. Because you were at the inception of the OSR, and see, if they'll take it away from you, they'll take it away from Gygax, you know, and they'll take it away from its earlier roots as well. And I want to preserve that, and I don't give a damn if WotC likes it or not. They promised that they would take first edition, and that they would do, well, I wouldn't say promised, right? They said, hey, look, we're looking at older editions of D&D and stuff and bringing them into CC by attribution and whatnot. I'll just write the damn thing myself, I figure. I'll sell it for nothing, and I'll put it in CC, and if they don't like it, they can do what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's unfortunately just, we're going to have to wait and see. And I'm not an attorney. I have basically been, the equivalent of flying with my my cockpit open and my flaps out, my landing gear fully extended, hoping I don't get shot down as I fly over legally dubious territory, and fully well aware that Wizards of the Coast could open up at any minute and I could get blown out of the sky when I publish stuff for free. So I don't advise anyone do what I did. I do not advise anyone just jump out there and dare Wizards of the Coast to do something, because I didn't know none of us knew in 2000 if Wizards of the Coast was going to go full TSR. If they were just going to say, pull off the mask, but there's just another mask underneath it when it comes to their legal approach. And for those of you who don't know, TSR in the 1990s was awful. I've talked about them before on the show about how awful they were. And I am of the opinion, I know we've had Ty Beard on the show, and Ty has said that I'm wrong about this, but I am of the opinion that TSR in the 90s, this is a fact, not an opinion, but TSR in the 90s said, yeah, you can upload your stuff to the internet, but guess what? It belongs to us when you put D&D on it. Yeah. And the difference between them and Wizards of the Coast is you can upload your stuff to the internet, and guess what? It belongs to us if you put D&D on it. It's literally just the tone.
That's all it is. The tone and the language. And honestly, I don't think they care about it enough to go after it now, because if they go after something like that, so the concept is, let's say, an advanced compendium. The book's just called Advanced, right? And it's something that you can plug into whatever OSR system you're running or whatever. Are they really going to come after you? Because if they come after you, they got to come after everybody else. See, the problem now is, for them, the cat's already out of the bag. There are so many OSR systems that are based largely on D&D, particularly with them releasing with them having the OGL and them releasing the SRD or 5.0 or 5e in the SRD or whatever, that they're going to have to sue everybody. Okay, so sue everybody and include me.
Yeah, you made an interesting point earlier, I thought, and I meant to come back around to it, but I do want to address this. You had said something about, so we have Swords and Wizardry, and then we got White Box OSE, and then we've got Micro Light, and then White Hack, and Micro Hack, and White Light, and we have Blue Home, and we have, as you say, photocopies of photocopies of photocopies of photocopies. I'm going to put a pin in this, Christopher, because I want to address something real quick. Your comment about the Pinkertons. But you're absolutely right. If they decide to drop the hammer, that's going to be the canary in the coal mine. If they go after somebody for publishing their own AD&D module and putting it up for free, and it looks like an AD&D module, and they slap Greyhawk on it, and not that I know of anyone who's ever done that. If they drop that hammer, the chilling effect that's going to have on the hobby is going to be kind of rough. And I want to address something Christopher Sims said after the Pinkerton incident. I covered the Pinkerton incident extensively on this channel. And Dooms, you know all about that, right? The Pinkerton,
I do.
because that was literally in your town.
Right, right.
that happened in like was somewhere in your neighborhood. But
Yeah.
Yes, we were all angry. Yes, it was a PR black eye. Yes, it was terrible. No, Wizards of the Coast did not take it back. They did not walk it back. They did not apologize. They did not take the heat off the guy and make a big show of saying, we're sorry, we're wrong. They did it, and then they moved on, and they bore the brunt of unpopularity, and they just kept going, you know? So we saw the big main battle tank that was Wizards crush a guy into the pavement, and we all yelled and threw aluminum cans. The commander, that is their legal department, did not stop, get out, help him, promise to fund his recovery, and come over and apologize to all of us. They just kept driving. So people who say they won't risk that PR black eye, what PR black eye? They didn't get a PR black eye. By and large, we are the ones who remember it. And a few people out there on social media. So, yes, I think they would absolutely turn around and do a donut over somebody like DOOMSWORD, somebody like me, if we stuck it out there too far. So,
yeah, and perhaps that's true. But, the thing is that they've got a lot of other people that they have to go after at this point. And who are you going to go after? What? You're going to go after OSE? You're going to go after the company worth millions of dollars? Well, go ahead. Go for it. You're going to come out after, what is it? It's a 5e leveled up or whatever ImWorld made, whatever Morris made. His advanced version of 5e and stuff like that. We go after that. Go after the millions of dollars that's generated. Yeah, you want to come after something else? Come after MCDM or whatever. I'm going to put out whatever I want, and I'm just a tiny fish in a giant pool of sharks, and I don't care because I believe that the legacy. I really believe that the OSR should have stayed advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And
well, you'll get no
if you
argument
wanted a more simplified version, get a more simplified version. We call it OSR Basic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you will not get much of an argument from me on that front. So I guess the question comes, and you've kind of touched on this already. I'm not putting the thumb screws to you because I'm already a couple days overdue on the backers, the Patreon's AD&D module, and the backers include you. So I'm not one to talk on deadlines, but the stuff that you would like to publish, have you thought about a window for that? Like, I'm going to do this in 2025. I'm going to do this later in 2024. Or is it just kind of one of those, I'd like to do it someday things?
It's mostly written. Art is the challenge. And it's always the challenge because I know if I release it with AI art and I promote that stuff on Twitter, I'm going to get a mob of guys who are supposed to be my peers who are going to jump on me for using AI art. Right. And not playing. Not from you. Yes. But the second I release, so it's probably not even feasible to think about releasing a Kickstarter for anything like that. So it'd probably just be a PDF. I've got almost everything built up in InDesign. I need so it would probably be the monster book first. And I want to find a either put my own site together where I can sell a PDF of that or sell a PDF through a shop. But I would rather just go ahead and putting my own site together to do that is very easy. I own a couple of domain names already that, would encompass that kind of thing. it just kind of a matter of figuring that out. And I think I would probably publish PDFs. Now, something that's cool is, you can on Patreon find individuals who are a little bit less draconian with their licensing requirements and stuff like that. You will find a lot of people who are just horrible about it. They'll be making $10,000 a month and they want another $5,000 from you to use their artwork. But there's one particular patron that I follow, and I think for the monster art, I'll just take all his tokens. If you pay at a particular tier, like $10 a month, you can take all his monster tokens and you can use it wherever you want, as long as you don't make X amount of money a year. And I think the original PDF would just be taking his tokens that I'm licensed to use and putting them in next to every monster and putting a PDF out there, slapping a CC stamp on it. And if Wizards doesn't like it, they can come after me. Obviously, I renamed the Beholder. I've already renamed the Beholder. I've renamed the Illithid, Mind Flayer, whatever. And I like the names. And a couple of things have been excluded, but not purposefully. I just haven't got it back around. I'm trying to decide on format, because what I really want to do is I really want to encourage specifically OSE players to use this in their games, and translating, hey, AD&D has like 12 things, number appearing, frequency and lair, treasure types, various things like that OSE and other OSR games don't have. Basically, I need to find a way to translate an AD&D stat block into a BX stat block that doesn't have those things, doesn't have segments and that sort of thing. Something that's not too offensive to the people who use those rule systems. So that's the last part. It's this year, and I will take pro bono art all day long.
There you go,
Because
Alan.
if it's gonna be me, it's gonna be stick figures. I just don't have time. But I'll send you the copy, and I'll send you what I've put in the book. I think the book looks pretty good from a desktop publishing.
Well, there you go. We have brought some creative folks together, and that's one of the great things about you guys here on this channel is that bat signal goes up and good folks respond. So I hope you guys can make some make some art together. I really do. Alan, thank you for reaching out like that. Dooms, if you want, I don't know if you guys are connected on the internet in any way, but if either of you wants to send, or both of you want to send me your contact deets to the email address there, feel free. Just go right ahead. So I will connect you guys up.
Will do. And one thing that I'll do first is I want to send you a couple of pages and try to determine what you, as the person who would never buy such a thing, because you already have the original books, thinks of it. You know what I mean? Because I might not buy
have Swords and Wizardry. There's a copy of Osric knocking around here. I have Blue Home, so don't tell me I wouldn't have it.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I want to put it in front of the face of somebody who's really like, this guy has rewritten Gygax, and there's somebody who realizes the sanctity of Gygax and what it means to rewrite Gygax, if that makes sense.
I think so. So I can't. And now I'm intrigued, and I really want to see it. Now I am truly intrigued. So yes, I cannot wait to see that. That's going to be pretty interesting. It's we are coming up on the hour of 11 here, and I know Dooms, you're probably still recovering from 5 8 hour gaming nights at Guac. But if anyone out there in the audience has any additional questions you'd like to ask DOOMSWORD, now is the time. Strike while the iron is hot, because we're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes. And while you're thinking, I just want to take a minute, please, folks, if you haven't already, do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. We are, let's see, let me bring this up here. We are at currently, come on, I know it's not that. We're currently at 5,685 subscriptions on the channel, and I thank you all so very much for subscribing. But if you haven't already, please do click the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. And if you're watching this video after the fact, give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below and tell me what you liked about it. And if you didn't, give it a thumbs down and leave me a comment below and tell me what you didn't like about it. I'll do more or less of those things to keep you guys happy. And if you want to support the show for as little as $1 a month on Patreon or $2 a month on YouTube, there's the Patreon link scrolling by. There's the YouTube membership button. At the $10 backer level on YouTube or on Patreon, every month you receive a short first edition AD&D adventure penned by myself or by my co-host Kyle Schuon. So you're bound to get something out of it. And there is a new tier coming, by the way. I'm not going to reveal too many details, but there is a new tier coming. So the Dave asks, what art style are you looking for? Good question, the Dave.
To me, that's anything that doesn't suck. Because if I try to do it, it's gonna suck. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the past drawing things and stuff, but I just don't. I can't. I just can't.
I understand.
So, yeah, and otherwise it's going to be AI art. And if I release a product with AI art that also tries to bring some of these things that other people have been sort of squeamish to take away from WotC and bring into, a CC license or some sort of open source license, it's not going to be well received. So anything that doesn't suck. I mean, I wish, I don't know how Matt Finch did it. I have no idea how he took stuff like Sword and Wizardry and the Swords and Wizardry and Osric and drew that stuff himself while writing the stuff. I look at the art and I'm like, man. And I'm like, yeah, but he was also writing this and drawing it.
Be in the audience and ask him tomorrow. Perhaps he can tell us.
Right.
Thank you for your 3 months of membership, Lord Coron. I do appreciate that. So I was a big fan of the anything that doesn't suck school of art, particularly in the 1400s. But
yeah, and I talked to a buddy of mine. I told him I was like, hey, it's really the only buddy of mine outside of you guys. And I was like, hey, man, I can't draw, He's like, I thought you could draw. I'm like, yeah, I can draw, but I can't draw good enough, And he's like, man, you're missing the point of art. The point of art is just to do whatever you can and make it good. And I'm like, I can't even make it. I can't even look upon that,
Yeah, I completely understand, dude. The Dave does all his own art, and the Dave's going to be on the show here in a few weeks, and so we will see some of the Dave's art. So there you go. So, some people are multi-talented like that. What can I say? But anyway, I think barring any further questions, is there anything you'd like to close with? Any final thoughts, Dooms?
Well, Vaughn asked if I planned on doing any more Conan reads.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I do plan on doing more Conan reads. I got a couple of them lined up. I chose as my next one, The God and the Bull. And that's a particularly difficult story to even follow. It's not even it's not one of one of Howard's best works. So, and looking at that, I kind of rewrote it and rewrote a short synopsis of it and set it up to be built. But I think I'd be better off just go ahead and read one of his poems, and then that'll get me back on track. Read Samaria, or the poem from Phoenix on the Sword or something like that. So I'll put something out there, Vaughn. Yeah, I could read the entirety of Red Nails or whatever. That'd take hours in graphic novel form, and that's a brilliant graphic novel with Barry Windsor Smith. Incredible.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, I used to have that Red Tails. It was beautiful.
I tell you what, man. If you guys want to see some amazing comic art, Barry Windsor Smith. There are a few short Conan stories. Did you read Epic Illustrated back in the day, Dooms? Marvel's
Yes,
Epic Illustrated. Yeah, there was some short form, full color, and I mean painted Barry Windsor Smith Conan pieces in Marvel's Epic Illustrated. Guys, the issues are cheap. They're like $5 and $6 on eBay. Absolutely worth every penny. I highly recommend.
Yeah, that's how the Red Nails graphic novel is.
Yeah, build yourself a collection of Barry Windsor Smith stuff and Epic Illustrated. So thank you, Dooms, for stepping up tonight, for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's an absolute blast. Absolutely. So tomorrow night, Matt Finch is going to be here, but Friday night, you will be back. You will be playing in Gamma World, and we'll see what happens to a guy who has one hit point and crawls himself out of the burning wreck of a tank in the shattered planet that is Gamma World.
I'm sorry, one thing.
Yes.
I'm the opening band for Matt Finch. You didn't tell me that.
No, Matt Finch is the opening band. Well, I guess technically tonight.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll see Matt tomorrow night. We'll see DOOMSWORD again on Friday night. You'll see me every night on the live stream. Thank you, Dooms, for being here. Thank you to our audience. Big ups, Lord Corion. I appreciate it. He says, may DOOMSWORD sword strike true for many ages. Absolutely. Vaughn, we did answer your question. Lord Corion, congratulations, and thank you for being a member for 3 months. But until then, I don't care what system you statted out in, boys and girls. You have got to be very careful, and you have got to watch out for those horrible, horrifying, dreadful owl bears. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.